Good morning. This is Victoria Beal. I'd like to welcome you to this morning's webinar on public involvement. And we have for you a phenomenal panel this morning who is going to talk to you about lessons learned through the public involvement and specifically virtual public involvement that has been occurring during our COVID-19 time period. Would like to just go over a couple of housekeeping items with you before we get things rolling. First off, in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar panel, there are 3 handouts that the team has provided for you, and you can download those now or sometime during the webinar. I will also be emailing them out through a link after the webinar has completed, with hopefully a link to a recording of this webinar if the recording is successful. But if nothing else, at least I'll be definitely sending a link out to these items. So if you're able to download them, that's great. If not, don't worry, they're going to be coming in an email later. The other thing is I wanted to ask for you to find the questions section of your GoToWebinar panel. And if you wouldn't mind, please drop me a hi or hello in there. And I see someone who's obviously been on a webinar with me before, and they already put a hello in. I just want to make sure you know where this area is, because that is where we're going to ask you to put your questions during the webinar this morning. And we definitely want your questions. This has been a learning experience for our panelists, and they want to make sure to share with you the information that you're looking for. So please make sure to, once you've dropped a hi or hello, remember where that is, and go ahead and put any questions or comments you have in that box, and I'll be working to read those off to our presenters throughout this morning's webinar. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Jacque Annarino, who is ODOT's Public Involvement Coordinator and has been the one who was instrumental in getting this whole webinar set up and structured for you. Jacque, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Victoria, very much. As Victoria said, my name is Jacque Annarino, and I'm ODOT's statewide NEPA Public Involvement Coordinator. Presenting with me today are Brianna Bedanes, who is ODOT's Central Ohio Region Public Information Officer, Stacy Schimler, who is ODOT District 2's Environmental Coordinator, and Rebecca D'Angelo, who is ODOT District 2's Public Information Officer. And I would like to thank them very much for making the time to help me with this today, because without their experiences, we would have nothing to share with you. So as you may be aware, ODOT has run into a few issues with hosting live virtual public meetings, and we'd like to share some of the lessons we've learned thus far with all of you. So we're going to start out today by telling you what we've tried, and then give you suggestions for selecting a platform to host a virtual public meeting, and offer tips for what to do before, during, and after your virtual public meeting. And we really hope that you find this information helpful. Back in December 2019 or January 2020, ODOT entered into a contract with publicinput.com. And when we initially entered into contract with this service, we were only really interested at the time in their survey tools. This was before the COVID-19 pandemic, and we really weren't considering hosting virtual public meetings at that point, at least not on a widespread basis. Then when the pandemic did hit, like most of you, we were scrambling to figure out how we conduct public meetings virtually. Publicinput.com said we could do this through their platform, but it wasn't really clear to us initially that we needed a paid WebEx or Zoom account to make that happen. And additionally, after working with them extensively in our first attempt to get a live virtual public meeting set up, we realized how complex and confusing it can seem pretty quickly. We decided not to use that platform for that particular meeting because we didn't have a lot of time to prepare. So we ended up just doing a live phone Q&A session for our first one. We also started looking at other things that might be a little more user-friendly. So we looked at using Microsoft Teams because it seemed to be more user-friendly, and ODOT had just acquired that service. But we had some serious concerns with using that platform, because if we were to use Microsoft Teams to host a live event, there's no call-in option. So the participant had to have a smartphone or computer to participate, which could cause some legal compliance issues for us. And then if we were to host a Teams meeting, the participant can share video or remove other participants from the meeting or rejoin if we remove them from the meeting. So that option might work fine for stakeholder meetings, but ODOT doesn't really want the public at large having quite that much freedom. So we currently don't recommend using Microsoft Teams for virtual public meetings. So next I reached out to Victoria, who, as you know, is ODOT's LTAP administrator, because we knew she used GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting for her trainings. So we wanted to get her input and expertise. Victoria graciously allowed us permission to use her account to host virtual public meetings, at least until we could figure out things on our own. Her only ask was that we didn't interfere with her training sessions. So we've been doing very well. We haven't even had to use her license yet, as a matter of fact. And ODOT just got our license for GoToMeeting yesterday. So we are now able to do that without even having to impose on Victoria, thankfully. So Victoria trained me on how to set these up and has given me some impromptu training this morning, in fact. And so we're happy to be able to provide this service moving forward. After we checked into Microsoft Teams and GoToMeeting, I also reached out to our IT department to ask for their support and assistance in determining what the best approach for these types of meetings would be. But they're not that familiar with these platforms either, and they really couldn't offer us any recommendations. So we're kind of left to learn how to swim on our own. So we moved forward with publicinput.com, and they now provide a paid WebEx account for ODOT as part of our contract with them. So we can use a combination of publicinput.com, WebEx, and YouTube Live to host our virtual public meetings. This contract with publicinput.com expires in December of this year, but we have the option to renew for an additional year. We're unsure what the future holds, you know, if we'll be permitted to with all the budget constraints and everything due to the pandemic. So we'll just have to kind of play it by ear and see what happens at the end of the year. But until the end of the year, that is an option for us. And again, as I said, we just purchased a GoToWebinar license and got our license yesterday. So we have that platform available to us now as well. It's taken us some time to work through these things. So we've come to truly appreciate patience, fortitude, and understanding as we continue to try to figure it all out. Having said that, we will share with you the platforms ODOT will or will not use and provide some tips for what to do before, during, and after the meeting. So now I'm going to hand it over to Brianna Bedanes to talk about what ODOT will or will not use and the reasons behind those decisions. Brianna?
Hi, thank you, Jackie. Again, I'm Brianna Bedanes. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Central Ohio region. It covers ODOT's districts 5 and 6. So a couple of the platforms that we have decided not to use, and again, this is just based on our agency and our organization, what works for us. You may make different decisions for your organization. Zoom, we weren't able to use due to security issues, Zoom bombers. I'm sure you guys have all heard about that. And even though the issue's been corrected by requiring a password to enter the meeting, our IT department still has some security concerns about this option. So we won't be using Zoom. And Jackie mentioned already some of the issues with Microsoft Teams. It's a great platform for internal meetings, but externally, anyone can pop up an attachment or a video on the screen. We can't remove anybody from the meeting. And then without that call-in option, we do have some legal issues there as well. Facebook Live initially seems like a good option, right? Because, you know, you go live on Facebook, your followers get a notification that you're live, anyone can tune in. But the thing to remember is that you have to have a Facebook account to access the Facebook live stream. So that requires users to not only have a computer and internet access, but also a Facebook account. And also sending a notification to all your followers isn't the best when you're trying to target a specific area about an intersection, or maybe it's a stakeholder meeting. And if we went live on Facebook, it would prompt 20,000 plus subscribers to come watch our video, which maybe only talks about a small intersection in Marion County, and then you just invite, you know, folks, keyboard warriors, to get on and heckle you and ask questions when they don't really have a vested interest in the project. So we decided not to use Facebook Live for that reason. Another one being that YouTube Live offers a great alternative, because you can only access YouTube Live if you have the link. So it's not like you could just stumble upon it when you're browsing YouTube videos or scrolling through Facebook. So that brings us to what we are using. As Jackie mentioned, publicinput.com offers a few different options for broadcasting the meeting and live streaming the meeting. So when you broadcast it, you can choose between Zoom and WebEx. So since we're not using Zoom due to security reasons, we have used WebEx to broadcast those meetings. That works well for us. And then to stream the meetings, we have successfully used YouTube Live, and that actually streams through YouTube Live and straight onto the public input page. So if you've already sent the link to the project page to the stakeholders or the public, you can go ahead and the video will just pop right up on the top of that screen. So that's been really successful for us. And you have to remember, when you use public input, you have to set up one room in WebEx for the presenters, and then you also have to create the meeting in public input for the participants to view and comment back and forth. And GoToWebinar is going to be another option that will seem to work well for us. It's a lot more user-friendly. It doesn't integrate with the public input project website like WebEx and YouTube would, but it seems like it'll be a good option for us moving forward as we kind of learn a little more about that platform since we just got our license. So I'm going to pass it off to Stacy to talk about some tips that we recommend for before your meeting.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Stacy Schindler. I'm the District 2 Environmental Coordinator. We're up in Northwest Ohio, Toledo area, Bowling Green. So before the meeting, we went through a few things. We did the first public meeting that ODOT did, and it was interesting. We made it, but so we've learned quite a lot. So these are some of the things that, as we were going through it, that we came up with to try to make sure that the meeting went better. So I'm sure there's other things, but this is just kind of what we've started off with. Like Brianna said, when selecting a platform, make sure you can control the audience. That's one of the biggest things. Make sure that there's a call-in option for those who don't have access to the internet. This is especially important for low-income and underserved populations, to make sure that we're engaging those populations and that they have the option to come into the meeting, into the project. Also, the methods to prevent bad actors, the need and ability to mute and unmute the audience and prevent them from unmuting themselves. We tried a few different platforms, and it was, we had people call in from their personal cell phones, and all of a sudden it was like, who took over? So things to think about when you're trying to pick a platform. Yeah, the ability for them to share and you'd be able to stop them sharing video, and the ability to remove bad actors. Even if they're muted and their audio is off, they might just keep, continually messaging and sending inappropriate comments. So make sure that there's a method to handle that. We don't want to ruin the meeting for everybody. So the other thing, moving forward, before the meeting, make sure to upload all the meeting documents to a project website before the meeting. Project materials, when you're thinking about your timeline, make sure that those project materials come in sooner than an in-person meeting, because you'll need to mail the handouts and exhibits out with the invite letters. And that's something, again, for the low-income and underserved populations, to make sure that they are able to get all the information about the meeting. If they're not super tech savvy, or maybe they don't have a computer or a smartphone or whatever, we want to make sure that they're engaged and they have all the information. So yeah, making sure that the materials are submitted sooner when you're setting up your timeline, and then having the handouts and exhibits mailed with invite letters. Also, we've at least for District 2, excuse me here, at least for District 2, we increased the mailing address area so that a greater area receives the invite letters and handouts and exhibits, so that we just want to make sure everybody can be involved and knows about the meeting and the project. Really, one thing to think about when you're getting your project set up is that it may increase your printing and mailing costs, and but it also you may get a greater participation and insight into the project area with doing those things. So oh yeah, go ahead.
A couple questions.
Yeah.
One came in pretty early on in your comments was, how do you handle ADA accommodations for this format? And if you'd like someone else to take that question, we can do that too.
And I can try. I know some of the platforms like Public Input has where it can Jackie might have to jump in. I can't think of the word.
Translate. It automatically translates the page. You can change your whole page into Spanish or Arabic with the flip of a switch. So you don't have to translate everything line by line. It does Google Translate initially, and then you can just have somebody review it and clean up anything that isn't exactly perfectly translated.
And
but
it
then
translates.
I'm sorry, Stacy. I was going to say, we also include information in our letters, our notifications, our meeting notices, that if someone needs accommodations, to notify us who to contact for that. So you can talk about that a little bit, Stacy.
Yeah. So all of our invite letters have, and we also post it on the website, it has like a little box on there that says anyone who may need special services like, and Jackie, this might get back to what you're saying about the translating. When we're speaking right now, and I think Public Input translates it, right? Or you can push a button to ask it to do that, even just to translate it to English. Okay, so that.
I believe that's correct. We have not had to use that feature as of yet.
It automatically transcribes comments so that the words show up on the screen.
And the project website, it does it for the actual project website and publicinput.com too. It translates it to another language.
Yeah, and so that's one for the speaking, when we're speaking. And then for the invite letters, they have like a little box on it that says if you need assistance with like, if somebody were, not be able to hear or not be able to see, we can, they're supposed to contact the contact on the invite letter, and then we can talk to them, contact them and see what accommodations they need. And we also have I have a project actually right now that the meeting is going to be June 10th that has Jackie was saying Spanish and Arabic populations in the area. So we have the end of that project letter, the invite letter, and also the handouts have a line on them that say in Spanish, if you need if you need this translated, please contact. And then we have a contact person on there. Initially, I personally hadn't had this come up. I'm sure somebody else has, but the contact was me. And I talked to Jackie and I was like, Jackie, I don't know what happened if somebody contacted me in Arabic. I can't speak Arabic. So it was good to, we actually have somebody in District 2 that can speak Arabic. So he agreed to be the signer or the contact person on the letter. So just things to think about when you get into that. And if you're not sure about that stuff, it's on the, oh my gosh, I can't think of the word, census. The census data has the non-English speaking populations shown on there. And then we contacted the school in the area to see what the typical languages were, because it doesn't say Spanish and Arabic. We contacted the school and got that information. So that's kind of a sidebar, but I think that went through all the ADA things. Victoria, I don't know if there was anything else.
Another question, and it's around the documents that you're mailing out. They wanted to know, do you recommend a summary sheet for longer documents instead of sending the entire document and then the larger documents upon request?
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to mail them like a 600-page plan sheet or something. So what we've done for ours, so we've had, this will be, the June 10th one will be our second one that we've done. And normally we have like a really long kind of handout. And what we've asked to do is to squish it, and we put it pretty much into like bullet points. And then we put the exhibits into the handout so that you get one kind of concise package for them. And then it says, you know, if they would like additional information, they have all the contacts on there. But yeah, we kind of do a squished and a summarized version to be able to send out. That way they still get all the information. They have the ability to get the detailed information, but we're not spending tons more money on printing and mailing. And, you know, because if you send out something giant, then it costs more for the mailing and you have to have a different envelope, you know, all the things. So yeah, that's what we've kind of done.
Okay, we have other questions come in, but I want you guys to have enough time to get through your presentation, so I'll hold these.
Okay, I'll keep going here. So yeah, make sure on the website beforehand to post the instructions on how to connect to the meeting on the website. So that would include also how to submit the comments before, during, and after the meeting. So we have all that on our website now for ours. And then after the meeting was over, I changed. We have a public input website and then we have an ODOT website. So we changed both of those to take off the stuff that was just during the meeting, so that people didn't get confused afterward. But make sure to have that information on there for them. Also share any browser requirements that you're aware of, whether it's, you know it works better in Chrome or Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, whatever. You know, make sure to kind of let them know. If you know, let them know. You can put little boxes on the website, especially where you're going to click on the meeting to start to join it. You could have like a little note on there. Also, if they need to refresh their browser to get the video to start playing, like if they come in early, you can have a little note on there that says live stream will begin at 11 a.m. If you joined before this, please refresh your browser to make after the meeting start time to get the video to start. Also, kind of a pro tip is to have a contact person for the tech stuff, to be able to help them, walk them through if they have technical challenges with it. So this would be a person, and we're going to get into this here in just a second about the team for the meeting, but to have a person that is specifically designated to help people that can't maybe see the video, but they can call in and they want to see the video. So to have somebody that's not the presenter and, you know, that's not doing all these other things, that can just focus on that and help the people do that. It's kind of an option if you can get a big enough team to do that. And make sure to post the information on the website and include it in invite letters if you have it. And I can give you the ones that I have worked on, even if you want to see them, but they don't have some of this stuff. We're rolling with it. We're learning new things. So like you'll see some of my older one doesn't have this stuff, but we're working on it. So we're getting there. So speaking of the project team, consider staffing needs for it. And this was fully a lesson learned for me when we started our first meeting, was that I was doing everything, and Jackie came in and she's like, whoa, and totally helped me out with, like, because I was trying to give the presentation, start the meeting, do all the things, and like it wasn't good. So one thing we've learned is to have a person that can manage the platform, like get the tech all set up and make sure that, like, if you're doing like public input, for example, it's running. And that's kind of what Victoria is doing for us right now, in case you know, kind of a real life example real quick, is that she's helping with making sure that GoToWebinar is running, and she's also kind of doing comments. For our public meetings, we kind of had somebody that was going to do tech, that was going to set up the meeting, and then somebody that was going to do comments. And then we also have the presenters, so like our design engineers and like myself, and then but we figured all that stuff out beforehand, so that when we got in the meeting, we knew who was going to do what and everybody was ready. And we also let the public know as soon as we get in, to tell them this is what's going to happen. Let me make sure, I just run through my notes here real quick to make sure I talked about everything. Yeah, because sometimes there's a comment box, text messages, you have the voicemail, call in, and then the video and stuff. So make sure you have somebody to do that, all that things. I mean, it just makes it easier. You don't have to, but it makes it easier for sure. I'm living proof that it is easier with more than one person. And then the presenter, of course, which I kind of already talked about. Also, before the meeting, make sure you establish the ground rules. And there's a handout, I think, in the GoToWebinar that has what we kind of come up with, that you can take a look at and make your own or whatever you want to do. And then conduct a dry run to ensure technology works and everybody's comfortable with how to conduct it and handle the technology and how to hand off the presentations. Make sure internet connections are good, your microphone, your speakers, your camera. I also am a really good example of, we ran a dry run and it went down in flames, really did. And, and I was panicking, and thankfully we got it. We ran another dry run and that went down in flames. And third time's the charm, we got it. So that was definitely, that is a really good idea to run a dry run. And also the day of my meeting, my microphone broke on my computer, so I had to go get a new computer. So if you need some more stories, just let me know. I can tell you that. And then make sure you know a quiet space where you can participate and be in here. Like I'm not my kids are out there, I'm in here. So make sure you have a quiet space. You have an agenda that you're ready with, and then I like to have a script because I'm kind of have notes working here on the side of my screen that I work with. So just things to think about when you're getting started and what to do before the meeting. And I'm going to hand it off to Rebecca, or I don't know, Victoria, if there's any other questions, or I can.
We have a whole list of questions, so let's go ahead and move through the presentations, and then we'll go ahead and start working our way through that list.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, like she said, I'm Rebecca D'Angelo. I am the Public Information Officer for ODOT District 2, which is the Northwest Ohio area. I work with Stacy. So during a meeting, and a lot of these that we're telling you seem obvious, but it's just like good to have a check off because there's a lot going on. So during the meeting, don't make the recording or your live stream live until you're ready to present. So even, for this one, Victoria had the panelists join a little bit ahead of time, make sure all of our internet and stuff was working before we actually went live and everybody else could see us. So, general, just make sure everything's working well. So don't record or hit live until you are ready for that. When you are speaking, have a video on. Really helps be able to kind of put that face with the name, with the voice. So have a video on, but when you have video on, there's a million different ways to, have video now. So if it's on a computer or on your phone, don't walk around. That is super distracting. And it just distracts people from what you're trying to say in the meeting that you're trying to get across. And then kind of like with having your video, make sure that you identify yourself. So particularly in this interaction of, being on a screen, sometimes you can see like a name, but that doesn't mean that I know what you're doing for this. So as we're going through a project presentation, you might have like 3 different people with engineers and whoever else talking, and that can get confusing. So every time you come back, just, hey, I'm Rebecca, I'm the Public Information Officer. That just really helps people understand who they should be talking to. So also make sure that you speak up. You might have a great connection, but that doesn't mean that everybody will, or they'll have their volume up. So just make sure that you're speaking up. You're trying to come across as, cleanly as you can. And when you're speaking, this is a big, make sure as a presenter that you turn your mute off so that people can hear you. And then when you're not speaking, turn your mute on. So, as I've been waiting for my turn, I've been on mute, just heaven forbid, a car honks or kids run through, dogs bark, whatever. It's really distracting, and we don't want to take away from that during the presentation. So just make sure you're muted when you need to be, unmuted when you need to talk. And with that, we were kind of joking earlier, but if as a presenter, you need to step aside for a second, so you're getting a call or you need to go address something or you need to run to the bathroom, don't sneak out. Don't just walk away. Make sure that you're letting whoever's presenting at the moment know that you're stepping away, just in case they need to fill some time. And then obviously, if you don't have your video on, let them know when you get back. And then one of the main things is just to be mindful that there typically is a delay between me talking and then the crowd hearing it. So as you're going through your presentation, if you have like a question answer time, you might want to wait like an awkwardly long time, because if I just give a pause of like, does anybody have questions? No, okay. They might not have heard that and might be starting a question, before I've already moved on to the next thing. So just give yourself a little bit of a pause because there is typically a delay between speaking and audience receiving that. And then kind of like, Victoria said, Stacy said, post those ground rules on the project website, but also say them at the beginning of the meeting. That just kind of, sets the stage. Everybody knows what to expect. Here's what, as presenters, we expect out of the crowd. Here's what the crowd can expect from us. And with what the crowd can expect from us, make sure that you have an agenda and make sure that you stick with that and kind of go through your script. So a lot of us are script people. Even if you're not, word for word reading, you kind of have an outline of what you want to go through. That is very important as we take these meetings to the virtual world. I am a wing it person. Like in a normal public meeting, I've got the ideas of what I want to talk about. I'm good with winging it. That does not translate to virtual public meetings. You need to have a flow. You need to know what's going on, because if somebody pops in with a question or whatever, you could get very off track, and you do not want to miss something that you need to go over. This is a public meeting. There's a lot of things that we have to hit. So definitely have a script, have an agenda, stick with it. Even if you are a go with the flow person, still have it. So for example, one of our agendas, and this can obviously change as whatever the public meeting is that you need to conduct, but we start with a welcome, set the ground rules. We go over a meeting overview. So here's kind of what you can expect, and then kind of roll into the background of the project. That way you kind of just start with, here's how this is going to happen. We want to make sure that we kind of thank people for going through this with us, but also lay out that this is something new to us. We're working through technology. We're working through this new virtual world. So thanks for your patience with us. We really appreciate it. And then make sure, as a presenter, if you're setting this up, which this is something that Victoria has done for us, but make sure that your audience is muted, because if you get people just, crinkle sounds in the background or televisions, that can be distracting, and you don't want to take that away from everybody else that's trying to listen to what's going on. And then we kind of just go through, project team introductions. Again, make sure everybody knows who the team is, and then go through the presentation. So as you're going through that, you want to make sure that you're being open for those questions, and letting people know how they can contact you. So on our website before the meeting, we have, here's all the ways you can ask questions. And then as we're going through the presentation, there's a couple times within that presentation, we remind people, okay, if you have a comment, chat us in the chat box, or you can call this number, text us, whatever. And then obviously you'll want to do that at the end, but we'll get to that. And then as each person presents, just have them reintroduce themselves. Just, especially as we get into like engineers and more technical fields, it's good to just remind people who's talking and what they're talking about. And then if you are doing screen presentations, Stacy talked about, doing the dry runs of making sure you can hand it off properly. Definitely, you want to make sure that the live meeting is not the time that you're testing that for the first time. So just make sure everything is going well, and who's, as a presenter, I know who I'm throwing to, I know who I'm getting the pass off from. And then one of the things, as you get to the end and you do that question and answer, which Victoria is our moderator today, so you definitely want to have somebody that's kind of playing that moderator role. And it kind of gives like that personal touch to the virtual meeting. It can feel weird because I'm just talking to a screen right now, but the moderator or like the presenter would say, hey, Victoria, do you have any questions in the chat box? Do you have any questions through text message, or however the people can contact you? And that, even though you'll have something, behind the scenes of chatting with the other presenters or whatever, it gives that personal feeling, that personal touch of voicing it so that the whole crowd can hear. And that way they, if I, as a listener, know that I texted in a question and I hear them say, do we have any text questions? I'm like, oh yeah, let me listen for my answer, because that's what I'm interested in. And then as you get to the end of the meeting, as you're wrapping up, you want to make sure that it's clear that this is the end of the meeting. Don't just trail off or click sign out for everybody. But then again, just a reminder, thank people for working through technology with us, and remind them where they can get the information. So even though they joined this live virtual meeting, and they presumably did that through some form of technology, just remind them, here's the webpage where all the information is, here's how you can contact us, and lay out kind of what the next steps are. So if you have a comment that you didn't get to today, or you're thinking about this tonight as you're going to bed, here's how you can send us those comments, and here's the time frame that you can expect to get a response back from us. That way, you kind of just make sure everybody knows what to expect as you go forward with this, as well as, typically this is well in advance of a project. So here's kind of what's happening with this project timeline. So that's kind of during, and then after the meeting, again, seems obvious, but make sure you end the live stream. Make sure you're hitting that button before you start having the after talk with your coworkers. So it's good afterward to be like, hey, this is what went well, this is what we could do better next time, but make sure you end the live stream before you have those conversations. And when you post the video to the website or wherever you want to share this, leave out the beforehand talk and the afterhand talk. Again, very beneficial for the presenters to get on a little bit early and figure out what's going on, remind each other what's happening, then start the presentation. In the presentation, and okay, here's what we can improve upon or what went well, but don't include that when you post the video for everybody to watch. And then send follow-up reminders. So you can send an email or a letter. Here's the link to the video. Share again, here's how you can comment now that we're past the live portion. Here's how you can reach us afterward. Here's the comment period. Obviously, we'll take comments after that, but this is when we really want to hear from you. And here's when we'll respond to you. Just kind of make sure that, again, everybody knows what to expect, because this is a weird time of virtual. It's not as straightforward as if you're in the same room having these public meetings with the public. So that's all that I have. So Jackie, do you want to take it back?
Sure, thank you. Okay, so as you've heard, we've been learning and practicing, learning a lot, mostly about what not to do. We like to learn the hard way, apparently, but it sticks with us that way. So hopefully I can tell you we can provide this service for ODOT projects or for local LTAP projects that are funded through ODOT. So if you need assistance, we're here. Reach out, let us know what we can do to help you. Since we only have one license right now of GoToMeeting and one license of WebEx, scheduling is extremely important because they can only be used at one time. Each license can only be used at once for one meeting at a time. We're working on getting additional WebEx licenses so that we can offer more meetings at one time. But for right now, scheduling is of the utmost importance. So please reach out to me if you need to have a public meeting, a virtual public meeting, and I will get you on the calendar. We hope that you found this information to be helpful and useful today. If we can do anything, if there's, as we learn more, we'll share more. But if there's something that you have to offer to us, we're all ears. Please let us know what we don't know. Just thanks so much for your time and attention today.
Well, Jackie, we've
Victoria?
got lots of questions for you guys, so I'm glad we still have some time in the hour.
Okay.
I'm just going to start at the top of the list and keep reading until we get to the bottom and run out of questions or we run out of time.
Okay.
First one, have you noticed a performance difference in using WebEx versus GoToWebinar yet? Is one able to handle a larger volume of users better over the other?
We don't have enough experience yet to say one way or the other, but the thing that we've noticed, the difference between WebEx and GoToMeeting is when we're using WebEx, we're using publicinput.com, WebEx, and YouTube Live, all in conjunction. It's complex and confusing to set it up, but we learn more each time we have to do it. They're integrated with public input with the project page, so that is a nice feature to have. GoToMeeting is more of a one-stop shop. I think we can get the same size audience with both, but we have not used GoToMeeting yet for any virtual public meetings. I have a dry run this afternoon, my first dry run this afternoon. So we'll see how it goes and I can share that information later.
I'm just going to chime in real quick. I did very early on in this process, this is Victoria, use it for a pre-bid meeting for one of the districts. And we had almost 100 people on there and it worked really well. Just if anyone's curious. All right, the next question is, we have some folks who would like to know if they can actually get an invite to the June 10th meeting in order to view the platform working live.
Sure, anybody's welcome. It's a public meeting.
Yeah, you can come. It will be amazing, I'm sure. Just
Yeah.
I said once before that just you can watch us go down in flames. Hopefully we won't, but I'm always worried about that. So yeah. It's June 10th. If you go on ODOT's website and go to projects, ODOT projects, there's a little banner at the top and one of the buttons says projects. If you type in the filter box, if you type in 102, no.
You know what? We can send it out through
942.
Victoria.
We can. We'll send it out in an email after
Yeah.
the webinar. So one person wanted to know if you had done any surveys revealing that people actually prefer virtual.
We have not conducted any surveys yet. We've only done 2 virtual public meetings so far. So no, we haven't gotten that sophisticated yet, but we do intend to ask our audience what they prefer. But I can tell you, it seems like we have greater participation with virtual public meetings, at least with county engineer meetings that we've participated in throughout the state. It seems to be a little more convenient. We've gotten a lot more comments on specific projects by going virtual because people don't always have time to go to a public meeting. But if we put the video out there on the website and people have time to watch it at their leisure and then submit their comments, we get a lot better participation.
Okay, next question. Have you held a formal public hearing to satisfy NEPA, and has FHWA agreed to a virtual format?
No. No, we have not. Thankfully, in Ohio, we have no EA or EAS projects. So we will cross that bridge when we come to it. FHWA, we've asked them repeatedly to give us guidance about how to conduct virtual public meetings. They're standing down. I am sure they don't want our program to be held up because of a technicality that we have to have an in-person public meeting. We feel like we can engage all the public virtually. We're not just holding a virtual meeting. We're still doing all the other things that we would do for a public meeting. We're posting flyer notifications in the project area. We're doing mailings to everybody. We're trying to get the word out as best we can. We will give flyers to food banks in the area if there are any, or community centers or schools or churches, and ask them to distribute it, or large employers. So we're trying to get the word out any possible way we can. The only difference is the meeting is online instead of in person. So we're going to keep going with this until we're told not to.
Okay. Next question. The recently passed HB 197, providing emergency relief during the COVID-19 pandemic, allows local governments to hold public meetings remotely and collect public comments. Has ODOT's legal team provided any guidance on this?
We're hosting our public meetings virtually. So we have run that by our legal counsel, our environmental lawyer, and I don't have any specific information in writing, but we feel comfortable holding our public meeting. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but we're holding our public meetings virtually for now.
They can follow up with another question in the box if they want
Right.
additional information. So next question, they want to know if it'd be possible to share an example of your public meeting notice or invite so participants of the webinar could use it as an example.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. I was gonna say ours, oh, if you go to, it's 102-942. If you go to that on the project thing, website, you can get the invite letter. The invite letter's on there, the exhibits, handout, the flyer, and then printable comment form, all that stuff's on there.
And keep in mind, we were throwing these things together last minute, so they might not be as polished as they would normally be. We had to hurry and scramble from an in-person meeting to an online meeting. And as Stacy said, this was the first one, one of the first ones. So we're flying by the seat of our pants, just like everybody else.
Okay,
Yeah,
the next question.
the PID I just gave you. Oh, the PID I just gave you is the second one. The first, I didn't give you
Okay,
the
so
first.
we have a little more time with that one. Okay. It might be a little more polished than the first one.
Okay, they'd like to know, do you send out hard copies of the meeting summary or project newsletter after each meeting?
Stacy, you want to take that? I mean, we would do what we would normally do for any other project.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a summary to everybody, but so what I do when I get comments in, so I'm usually the person that gets all the comments also. And when I get the comments, I'll send back a response to them. If there's if it's pretty controversial, like the one we just had, I think had maybe 10 comments. And so I just respond directly to them. And then but if I get like a lot of comments or we know it's controversial, sometimes we'll send out a table that has all the comments and then all the responses or all the questions and responses. That's like a table with to everybody who commented so that they can see all the comments and then all the questions, comments, and responses. So it's a little bit project specific on that.
In Central Ohio, we don't typically mail out anything afterwards, but we will sometimes post, once the website has all the materials that were presented at the public meeting, we'll post a link to that on our social media pages, or maybe send an email out to our list. Hey, in case you missed it, here's where you can get the materials, and the comment period's open until whatever that date is.
Now, we do respond to comments. So if we receive substantive comments at a public meeting, we will respond to each commenter. Just, if they submit a form, we're going to respond to those and post a summary of any comments received in a whatever response we provided on the project website as well.
Next question, they'd like to know, is it better to have a person making a live presentation like you are today, or a PowerPoint with a voiceover?
I think it's really personal preference, whatever you're most comfortable with. Personally, I like the live presentation, but because someone could interject or it prompts questions right on the spot, but I'm not opposed to somebody recording. If you record ahead of time, you can really have a polished presentation. So it can be either way, whatever you're most comfortable with.
And someone asked,
sorry,
go ahead.
We talked about you have to know who on your team is presenting and what their capabilities are. So for example, we have a couple engineers that would do way better pre-recording something rather than on the spot, but that just depends, what, like Jackie said, what your comfortability is, but also knowing what your teammates' comfortability and what their strengths are.
And what you're comfortable with as far as the technology. Like, right now we have it started and we can just give a presentation, but like, can you get the technology switched to play a video in here? Are you comfortable with that? And if you are, that might help make your decision for you.
I mean, it's just like sharing a screen, just like this. If you're in a Teams meeting or Skype meeting or something, you just share your screen. So if you want to pull up the video on your screen and not have it embedded in your presentation, you can do that too. So.
And they want to know, have you done a canned VPM that's housed on the project website?
A canned what? VPM,
which I think they meant
virtual public meeting.
Yep.
We have done that. Well, not a canned virtual public meeting, but we have done a recorded presentation, posted it to the project website, and shared that information with the people who are interested. That doesn't count really as a virtual public meeting, however. That is very beneficial for some projects, but it doesn't count because you don't have the live back and forth going on. We have done that. Actually, Stacy did that for one of her projects. They put the presentation out on the project website, and then they just held a live Q&A session by phone. And that seemed to go okay. So that's an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah,
We did have
we did that.
Sorry.
No, we did that with one of them, and it seemed to people really liked the presentation. And I think having done this for a while, like just interacting with the public for a while, everybody takes in information differently. Sometimes they're cool with a letter. Sometimes they want the handout. Some people like the face-to-face. Some people want to call you. So I think it just helps with getting the information through to different people. Yeah, so we have all of them right now up.
And that's a really good point, Stacy. Something we forgot to mention is if people are not comfortable or can't attend a virtual public meeting, they can call us and we will meet with them one-on-one. And we put that right in our letters. We will meet with them one-on-one or a small group if we need to.
Okay, and then the person with the HB 197 question followed up, and they said that HB 197 allows virtual meetings, quote, so long as the public is aware and can participate electronically, end quote. If a local government holds a virtual meeting and decides not to request live comments during the meeting, but will collect them afterwards, is this an acceptable process?
I will have to look into that and follow up. I don't know the answer to that right off the top of my head.
Okay. And then we had another question about how do you facilitate the recording of the presentation and the public Q&A of the meeting hearing for the public record? This is a federal requirement. They put that in the comment there.
That is a federal requirement for public hearings, and ODOT has not had any public hearings thus far. So, but with GoToWebinar, we can record all of this and save the recording, if I'm not mistaken, right, Victoria?
Right, yeah, we are recording not only the webinar today, but as you're asking questions in the background, it records who asked the question and it's downloadable. So we can, put that out for a public record if that would be needed.
And the same applies with publicinput.com. We can download the recording from YouTube Live and it saves all the comments in that platform as well.
They want to know, do you see a cost savings, meaning the handouts, room rental, staff travel, or overtime, displays, etc., or a cost increase, meaning dry runs, mailings, development of virtual meeting, and switching from on-site to virtual?
I think it's a wash, but I don't know. We don't have any good data to back it up, but there is some give and take. So I kind of think it's going to be a wash, but we can share that later on when we know a little more.
And then there's a question about what parts of the public meeting are considered public information that may be requested.
All of it, everything. And when we start, we have to let the audience know that we're recording. That was another thing I think we forgot to mention. Make sure you notify the audience at the very beginning that you will be recording. Like on here, it says right on the screen, this session is being recorded.
Okay, the next question.
Oh, I was just going to jump in on that cost thing. So we've had, I've had two, and the second one's coming up, or the second one is coming up. And I have consultants on board to help with both of those. And we've been really conscious about like, hey, do you have time in your budget? Do you have time in your budget? Are we going to go over? And for the most part, it hasn't been an issue. So I think that it's balancing out for them. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I have had those conversations with them, and they've seemed to be okay with it.
And I do think it's less because you've got less travel time. Nobody has to travel. And there are a lot of ODOT staff that sometimes go to these public meetings, and sometimes they're coming from central office up, which is in Columbus, clear up to Bowling Green. So you're definitely saving on travel time. You're saving on gas. You're saving on, time setting up and tearing down. So it kind of balances out a little bit, I think.
Okay, and then one person wanted to know, do you have any advice on strategies for having a virtual sign-in sheet? They said they know that GoToWebinar provides a list of who's signed up and their contact information, but they said that other platforms they've seen lack this technology.
We can require that people register, but when people come to our public meetings in person, we ask them to sign in, but we don't force them to sign in. So if they don't want to sign in and they want to walk past that table, we allow that. So if they want to call in anonymously, we have to allow that as well. But we always strongly encourage it, especially if they want follow-up information after the meeting. We want their contact info.
Sure.
The publicinput.com website shows everybody also. It even so the first one I had I didn't at the beginning of it, we didn't have the technology wasn't, I couldn't get the speakers to talk to the audience at the beginning. And we had some people that had called in, and the publicinput.com website recorded all of the phone numbers that had called in. So what I ended up doing was I called them back individually, and it was an awkward conversation, but I called them back and was like, hey, I saw you called into this meeting. But so I had to me, that was like a sign-in sheet. Like I had who everybody was that attended.
Yeah.
And after I talked to them, I knew who they were.
Yeah, there are also different levels of registration on publicinput.com. When you set up your meeting, you can choose anyone can get in with the link, or you can choose what they call light registration, where you just have to enter your email address, or a more formal registration where you enter like your name, email, and contact information. So you can make that choice when you set up your meeting.
Okay, there's 4 questions that came in. I'm going to bundle these together. They want to know, are you getting broader and more feedback from the virtual public meetings? Or have you had more public participants increasing in the virtual meetings versus the in-person? And what they're really trying to see is, they said at the in-person meetings, they seem to get more people that are on the extremes. Are you getting more of the middle of the road, just interested individuals? And how many attendees have you had at your meetings so far virtually?
I leave that to Brianna and Stacy.
Yeah, so ours was a and the reason why we did it as a virtual public meeting and we kept going was because it was a very non-controversial project. It's just a bridge replacement. It was a good one for us to be a test public meeting. The meeting was required, but only because it was a substantial traffic disruption, because we're going to close a 6-lane roadway in the middle of Toledo. Anyway, so we knew it was non-controversial in the first place. So we got 8 people that called. So not a ton. And one of them was a consultant. They just wanted to kind of see how things were going. And the people that called just really wanted information. They were not on the extremes. They just wanted information and to talk to us. That's not a very big subset.
Did it change, Stacy, did it change, because you posted the video out there, right? So did you get increased participation in that way?
So it doesn't, I didn't actually check if we can see how many people have viewed it. I have not looked at that since it got posted. So sorry, I don't know right now how many people have viewed it, but I did get some people that were really nice that responded, because I was super honest I was the one who recorded the video and did the presentation, and I was super honest. I'm like, I've never done this. Tell me what, if this is bad, good, give me some feedback. So I did get some people that said like, oh, it was good, thank you. But I don't have a super good sense of that at this time on what.
We're still very early.
There just isn't enough. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I was going to say kind of the same thing. We had only had a virtual stakeholder meeting so far. So I think we only invited like 15 to 20 people. So it wasn't high in terms of participation because it was targeted to a smaller group. But we do have a stakeholder and public meeting coming up for our controversial project in Central Ohio in the next couple months. So I think time will tell, and we can definitely share how that went afterwards.
Thank you so much to all of you. I want to be, cognizant of people's time and respectful of that, because we're about 30 seconds away from 11 o'clock. So, while you feel like you're pretty early in this process, I think just sharing what you've been through has been a tremendous boon for those who've been on the webinar. And I just want to thank the 4 of you for agreeing to do this, and thank our participants for being on today. We will follow up so long as the recording was successful, because technology doesn't always work the way we want it to. But if it does work right, we'll get the recording link out to everybody. I am going to follow up with the handouts and with the additional documents that were asked for during the webinar once those are provided. And I'm also going to be sharing the full list of questions with our presenters because I know there were some that we didn't have time to get to, and we'll work on getting responses for you. But I would definitely encourage you to reach out to any of our presenters today with questions you might have, because we're all in this together and we want to make sure that we're doing the best we possibly can for the public. So thank you again, all 4 of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and everyone on here, please stay safe and have a good day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.